Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Joyce Viriotes, Executive Director of Cummings Foundation. For those of you who have the ability to turn on your video, and if you're comfortable doing so, we'd love to see your faces. If not, we certainly understand. This meeting is really just for answering your questions about the Cummings $35 million grant program. It could be 20 minutes, it could be 90 minutes. That all depends on your questions. I'll share first that we have received 160 LOIs so far, and we can see that another 134 are in draft form. Last year, we received a total of 959 LOIs, so we do expect those numbers to rise significantly in the next few weeks. The deadline is September 16th, and we strongly encourage you to submit early if you can. We'll move swiftly after that deadline to prepare the LOIs for our volunteer grant reviewers, so we are not in a position to grant extensions. Every year, it breaks our hearts to tell people this when at least a handful of organizations do miss the deadline. It could be due to technical difficulties, a staff member out sick, or a last-minute crisis that needed their attention. You just never know what unexpected things might happen in the final days before the deadline. So if you can submit early, we urge you to do so. You may have noticed that the chat is not functional. That is intentional. We're going to take verbal questions first, and then we'll open the chat for anyone who prefers to type their question. Next, we'll introduce the staff on the call. While we're doing that, if you have a question, please feel free to use the raise your hand function so we can start queuing you up for the Q&A. Again, my name is Joyce Viriotes. I'm Executive Director of Cummings Foundation. I am going on 16 years with the Cummings organization. I technically work for Cummings Properties. I serve as Director of Communications and Marketing for the real estate side of our organization. And the work I do for the foundation is considered essentially a donation from Cummings Properties. And it's a real joy for me to be able to have one foot in each side of our organizations. But I did spend about a decade in the nonprofit world before joining Cummings. Next, I will pass it over to Andrew.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Andrew Bishop, Deputy Director here at the Foundation. It's wonderful to see some familiar and so many new faces around the screen. I had an opportunity to join the Cummings team in early 2022 and have spent most of my career serving as a professional staffer for private foundations, most recently the Klarman Family Foundation in Boston. I am delighted, alongside Joyce and Katie, as well as our website, to be among the many resources that we make available while you're preparing your LOI submissions to the Cummings $35 million grant program. And we just wrap up by thanking you all for taking a little time away from the critical work that you do to join us on the call this afternoon. So thank you, everyone. And Katie, I'll pass it over to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Katie Torrey. I'm the Grants and Communications Coordinator for Cummings Foundation, and I have the same title at Cummings Properties, where, like Joyce, I am formally employed. And I have been here for just about 4 years. You will most likely chat with me if you need any technical assistance during the LOI and application processes. I'm happy to help you with Foundant, resetting passwords, that kind of thing. Prior to my work at Cummings, I spent 10 years working for nonprofits in the greater Boston area, most recently Posse Foundation, where I was the Senior Development Officer. So looking forward to being here with you all today and hearing your questions.
Great, thank you. Katie will now facilitate the Q&A by inviting you one by one to unmute yourselves and ask your questions. We'd love for us to tell us your name and organization before asking your question, if you're comfortable doing so. For the sake of time, however, we ask that you not offer a description of your organization. Finally, if your question is specific to your organization and not likely to apply to others, we respectfully ask that you not ask it here, but either call or email us later. Both mine and Andrew's contact information is on the contact page of our website, and we are very accessible. Now I will pass it over to Katie to invite the first question.
Sure. Our first question is from Linda Susie. Linda, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Hi, Katie. Hi, guys. My quick question is the reviewers. What are they looking for? Are they looking for the history, the stories of success, the number of participants, or all of the above? And then my follow-up question to that is, are they matched, for example, with a grant you receive for low-income youth programming? So if I'm writing a grant regarding low-income youth programming, is it somebody who would be familiar with those types of programs? And my last question was, if funded previously, should it be mentioned in the grant or not? And that's it. Thank you, Katie. I'll listen.
All right, all great questions. So I will acknowledge your first question about what are our reviewers looking for. Just given the range and diversity and size and issue areas that our applicants are working on, we have not come up with that unified single rubric that will apply to all of our grantees. So we cannot, unfortunately, offer you that. What we can point you to is on our website, cummingsfoundation.org, we have a drop-down menu that says local grant program and a tab that says volunteers. On that tab are descriptions of each of our grant review and selection committees, and there are sample committee guides associated with each of those. So the very mandate that we give our committees and the information that we use to orient them to their role as a Cummings evaluator is all spelled out there and available to you as an applicant to look at. So definitely go to the website and take a look there. In terms of who the reviewers are, on that same page are the historical rosters of our grant selection committees, and you can see they are a wide range of Greater Boston professionals. We've had college presidents, we've had nurses, we've had just many different, nonprofit executives, for-profit CEOs. It really runs the spectrum of professionals. But with that in mind, they do work in committees, and the idea is that they collectively will agree, whether it's at the LOI, the full application, the grant selection committee phase, who will both advance in the process and ultimately get selected. And they work in various, combinations. So all of the committee members at each segment of the review cycle review the same set of applications and then agree on who will be
Okay.
selected or who will it advance. That said, we do not necessarily guarantee that that reviewer will have a professional background in kind of your organization's issue area or mission focus. So we encourage applicants to really write for a lay audience, recognizing that there might not be experts in your given field that are reviewing that proposal. So I think that was two of your questions, but was there one more?
Yeah. Let me get
I can
back
hear you.
muted.
Yep, you're still unmuted.
Oh, you can still hear me? All right. My last question was, if funded previously, should it be mentioned in this grant application?
Oh, yes. Okay. There will be one question in the LOI that asks if you are a previous Cummings grantee. So if you
Yes.
have had a prior award, you will want to say yes. We
Okay.
do batch all prior grantees together for review and all new or potential first-time grant winners for review. Our
Okay.
intention there is that every cycle we do want to, of course, award new grants to existing grantee partners, but we also want to make space every cycle for grantees that have not previously received a Cummings Award. So do bear that in mind. If you check yes and you've been a prior grant applicant, you're going to be reviewed alongside all other prior grant
Okay.
applicants.
Thank you so much. This has been very helpful. I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you. Our next question is from Arlene. Arlene, if you would like to unmute.
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes. So I'm part of the 1975 Memorial Project, also associated with Boston Little Saigon. I have two questions. Are organizations that are fiscally sponsored eligible for application to apply for this grant? Um, and what are some common mistakes that applicants make?
Right. We do consider requests from organizations with fiscal sponsors. So there is a question in the application about that. If you do have a fiscal sponsor, we ask you to upload your memorandum of understanding so we can understand that relationship. But then beyond that, we ask you to answer the questions as your organization, not with the fiscal sponsor's information. In terms of common mistakes, I mean, as Andrew was alluding to, we have such a variety of organizations, but the thing that comes to mind first is sometimes we have proposals that are it's all data and facts, and then we have other proposals that are all anecdotes and stories and heart, and we find that a combination of the two is really a good recipe for success. You want to have some metrics, some data to show that, hey, there is a need and we are helping to fill it in some way. But then it can also be very impactful to have some stories to humanize that a little bit. So encourage you to blend the qualitative and the quantitative.
Awesome. Thank you. Arlene, did you have a follow-up question?
No, thank you for
Okay.
helping me.
Our next question is from Adrienne. Adrienne, if you'd like to unmute.
Morning, actually afternoon. Sorry. Thank you, everybody. My name is actually Jenna Lloyd. I jumped in on Adrian's computer. I'm with the Mama Bear Effect. We're right out of Burlington, Mass. But even though we currently have a larger national focus, we really want to expand our services on a local level. And just under your geographical funding areas, would we fit for this? Because I know they really want it to be very local.
Yeah, that's right. So unfortunately, national organizations, even if they have a local presence and they're providing services and programs locally, would not be eligible. So an organization to qualify through our geographic eligibility criteria needs to be headquartered in Massachusetts, providing or headquartered in our geographic funding area, which is Essex, Middlesex, and Suffolk County, and then 6 communities in Norfolk County, providing half or more of their overall services in that footprint, and then otherwise is not operating outside of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And we know that those lines are somewhat arbitrary because there are national organizations working locally that do important work. We understand that. But as Joyce mentioned at the top of the call, even with those narrowing criteria, we still receive nearly 1,000 LOIs every year, and we do have to draw the lines somewhere. So taking nothing away from the local impact that national groups or regional groups that might work in other New England states have, but unfortunately they would not be aligned with the priorities for this grant program currently.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Alexander. Alexander, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes, hi. I'm with Fisher College, and I'm asking a question about higher ed. So Cummings has built some deep long-term partnerships with a number of colleges and universities, but I've noticed that the annual grant program typically only funds a handful of higher ed applicants in a given cycle. So I'm curious, for an institution like Fisher College, what makes higher ed applicant resonate with your reviewers?
That's a good question. You're right. We don't fund a whole lot of colleges and universities through this program. We don't have a whole lot of applicants from that area, and I think that is part of it. We tend to support small and medium-sized organizations, so a lot of local universities are quite large, and so would not be very competitive in the program. And we do group the applicants by category when we batch them and give them to our reviewers. So we try to keep education requests together. So the category field in the LOI, you self-select your category. The only way that we use that field is to batch proposals together. So that's how you would end up alongside other institutions of higher education. I don't know that our volunteers would view these institutions any differently than our other applicants. The number one thing we talk about with our reviewers and that they tend to be very focused on is impact. Like Andrew said, we don't have a scoring rubric. We have some broad principles and we leave a whole lot up to their judgment, but the number one theme is impact. We want the funds to move the needle for the organization and the people it serves. And so that's something that I would really focus on when putting together your LOI.
Okay, thank you so much. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Friends of Callahan. If you'd like to unmute.
There you go. Okay,
Hello.
sorry, there you go. Okay, you got it?
Can you hear us?
Okay,
Yes,
so we
yes.
had to unmute. Yes, sorry.
Thank you. Basically, a simple question. We're new to the Cummings grant, and we filled out the application when we were supposed to back in July, but the number that we requested is not really what we need. Can we change the amount?
Sure. So if you've already submitted the LOI, once you click submit, it does lock the form down, so you can't make changes at that point. If you would like to send us an email to grants@cummings.com, we can push it back to draft status for you. So you're welcome to make further modifications. Just send us that email. We'll push it back to you, and just remember, you're welcome to make any further changes until you click submit. But once you click submit, it will lock down the submission. So yeah,
Can we do this?
happy to push it back to you.
Yes, can we do this through our portal then, our online port that we can, the one we register on, or no? Or does it have to be a special email?
Yeah, no, so just email us at grants@cummings.com. We will push it back to draft status, and then you can log into the portal that you originally used to submit it, and everything will be available to then edit, modify, and then you can submit again through that same portal. So email first and then log into the portal.
Okay, because we found out, yeah, I mean,
It's a bigger project than we thought.
Okay,
okay. So
great.
Fantastic.
Okay,
All right,
thank
our
you.
next question is from Greg. Greg, if you'd like to unmute and ask your question.
Hi, thank you for having us today. So on your website, we've done a couple of LOIs and have not gotten anything yet. On your website, though, it does have exclusions for things like the arts, religion, et cetera. But when you look through some of the people who have received grants, they are members of the arts or religious groups. So I'm just trying to figure out what part of the LOI do you look at to maybe push something like that through if it is for the arts, but a different piece of the arts within, like, we raise funds for cancer research through the arts. So we're just trying to figure out, like on the grants that you have listed, it doesn't list what they use the money for. But we've noticed that some of the people that we kind of work with are receiving those grants. So we're just trying to figure out the visuals of that LOI, what those should really be focusing on.
Sure. So you're right. We don't typically fund the arts, athletics. We do fund organizations that use the arts or athletics for another purpose, essentially. So using the arts to attract youth who otherwise might be involved with gangs, or using athletics to hook kids in, but really it's a college prep program, those sorts of things. And I want to make sure we are clear that we very much value the arts, athletics, the things that we don't fund. It's not because we don't see value in them. It's just a matter of having to draw the line somewhere to keep the program somewhat manageable and setting some priorities. And so at the moment, those are the priorities that we have. Things are a little bit different this year, where we have moved to general operating support. So we are not asking in the LOI or the application about a specific program. We are not asking you how the funds will be used. We are just looking to learn about your organization. In the past, there may have been arts organizations that have been able to say, yes, we are an arts organization, but we have this specific project that is really workforce development, and made a case for that. That will be more challenging this year, to be candid with you, because we are shifting to general operating support. If there is an organization where generally in the world you would say I work for an arts organization, that it's probably not going to be able to be considered within the organization, within I'm sorry, this program. We also, just to be aware, don't generally fund medical research. And again, not because we don't see the value in that, but more that we feel like that really requires some specific expertise to vet research programs. We don't have that kind of expertise. So that's another area that we've left to other organizations to fund.
Okay.
Thank you. Our next question is from Liz. Liz, if you would like to unmute.
Hi there, I'm Liz Chang. I'm the new executive director of the GK Fund. And being new to the GK Fund, also new to Cummings, and I recently retired from GBH, I'm kind of new to this whole process. And I did watch in your previous video that there was an opportunity to have a Cummings coach. Is that still possible to have someone? And so I just need to go on the website and apply, correct? Okay,
So
great.
the interest period for working with a coach is actually passed. That was at the end of July. So we already have paired our available coaches to those applicants that expressed interest in working with one. Availability did outpace demand. So we had 38 coaches and 148, I think it was, organizations that expressed interest. So that is passed. Now, I would say that for any organizations that submit an LOI that move on to the full application phase, we will make coaches available at that phase 2. We do prioritize organizations that did not work with a coach at the LOI phase or have never worked with a coach before. So if your organization advances to the second step of our review process, coaching could be available at that point. Similarly, if you go to our website, cummingsfoundation.org, the volunteers page, all the materials that we make available to coached applicants and to the volunteer coaches is available there. So at a minimum, you can look at the information that we provide and the guide that we give the coaches and some of the information that we share with those organizations receiving coaching.
Oh, that would be great. I just have two quick questions then. I did see in the earlier version that it's a 3-year grant, and since our intention is to grow over the next 3 years, that our expectation is that the 20% would be of a bigger amount in year 2 and 3. And is that okay to put that intention in?
Sure. Yeah, we don't have a hard or fast rule or specific guidance there. We generally say 20% because, as you mentioned, these are 3-year grants. It's a competitive program. We don't want any organization through one funding source to double their budget, for example, and then when our grant ends, go over a fiscal cliff. So the 20% is a guideline, but for organizations that are growing rapidly, you can put in your past 3 years of completed fiscal year expenses. But then, you can make a note that, hey, we are projecting to double our budget in the next 3-year time period. So there are ways to signal that your organization is growing, and therefore a larger request would be justified. I would also share we do not decline any organization because they asked for too much in the requested annual installment field. That said, at the end of the process, once we have all 100 150 grant winners and we look at the amounts that they requested last year, that totaled $42 million, and we had 35 to award. So we do have to make a number of installment adjustments every year. We try to honor what the organizations requested in their applications and proposals, but there could be an installment adjustment made. But we just like to share you will not be declined just because your ask might have been too high.
And just what is the percentage of folks who go from LOI and successfully on to the grant application process? And if you are in that grant application process, are you assuming that you will get the grant or that there still is a culling process?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the numbers vary every year slightly, but typically, like Joyce mentioned, we got nearly 1,000 LOIs for our 2026 cycle that just concluded. About I want to say 700 of those we deemed as eligible and went forward to the LOI committee. About 300 to 350 of those will be invited to submit a full application. A smaller subset of that 350 will be identified as finalists, and then ultimately 150 will be selected for funding. So
Okay.
the percentages change a little bit every year, but that's roughly the narrowing that takes
Based on
place.
demand. So it's quite selective.
Yes.
And just one last question. So I'm just trying to figure this out. So we have a video and also we have some, like a 2-page kind of summary of what GK Fund is.
Mhm.
Is there a place to attach that? And should we do that or should we wait until the application process to put all our eggs in the basket?
Yeah, good clarifying question. So because of the volume I was just mentioning, we have needed to standardize the materials that we collect from each applicant just to make the review process sort of uniform for our evaluators. So we do not accept supplemental attachments. We just ask for what we require in the narrative response fields. Some organizations do get creative with that. So if you have a one-pager that is hosted on your website, you can put a hyperlink in your narrative response. Or if you have links to videos or other materials, you can include those in your LOI. We can't guarantee that the reviewers will go outside of the four corners of the application or LOI, but many of them do. Like they'll go to the internet, they'll go to your website, they might view your social media channels. So you're certainly welcome to put those links in if you think that that's worthwhile.
Great. Thanks so much. And we love the opportunity to be able to apply. And also it's been kind of really a clarifying process for me and for the organization. So it's been great.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Regina. Regina, if you would like to unmute.
Hi, everybody. My name is Regina Wolfritz, and I am with Better Day Adult Social Day Program. I love your shift to general operating support. I think that is wonderful. However, I'm trying to really figure out how do I fold in like a very specific project we are encountering. We are going to renovate our kitchen. So this is a very specific project. How much should I focus on that? How much should I really bring in other operating expenses like our financial assistance fund where we always need support for? So what should be the way?
Great question. That is a big change for this year. So we are encouraging organizations through the LOI to tell us broadly about your organization. You are very welcome, and it probably makes a lot of sense to talk about the different programs that you do. You can certainly talk about some needs that you have, but we are asking organizations not to focus on, like I wouldn't make the renovation the really featured aspect of your proposal. We think it will likely make it less competitive because you'll be looked at alongside all these other proposals that are talking about the entire organization's work and their successes and the impact that they have. And so it likely wouldn't fare as well if you're focused on one discrete project. That said, if you receive the funds, You can use them for the renovation, for anything that you want. We won't be asking you what the funds were used for. In impact reports, we'll be asking more broadly about how it's going with the organization, but we will not be asking you to keep track and detail to us how the funds are spent. We are assuming that they will essentially go into the pot and be used for the greatest needs.
That sounds great. So how do I then just budget wise, how do I just look at our next 5 years and say, oh, we have the kitchen renovation, we have the financial assistance, and kind of just put it all together? How that exceeds our revenue that we get in our revenue stream is, how just the outline, like, so you say like it can be completely broad. It's really more about our work that we do.
Yes, yep,
Okay, great.
exactly.
Okay, thank you so much. That's
Thank
helpful.
you.
Right, our next question is from, okay, it looks like Jay Busha. Sorry, I know we wouldn't let anyone change names, so I apologize.
No problem. That's great. You were close. It's Jeffrey Boucher, French Canadians, but they shortened it at the border. I'm from Central Boston Elder Services, and I know my question is about, I know AI is changing a lot and having significant impacts on all types of different initiatives and programs and such. And so I'd love to tell the story of CBES, Central Boston Elder Services, and how we work with our older adults. We work with 12,000 older adults, but um, I want to try and explain how AI has helped us change the process for intake and for assessments that we do for older adults. It's really revolutionized the whole process for how we involve with, how we engage with older adults. So, for example, we spend a whole lot less time punching, information into a computer and more time with the elder adults learning what their needs are and that type of thing. So without focusing specifically on the AI, I'd like to mention the AI project and then more about what we do and how we support older adults. Does that make sense, or is that too focused?
Sure, yeah. So as Joyce mentioned, you do want to speak about the organization overall, its
Right, right.
mission, its services, its impact.
Of course.
But you can use illustrative examples of specific projects, programs, or key organizational priorities that are
Sure.
maybe in a strategic plan, or even if they're not in a strategic plan, that as an
Yeah,
organization, these are outside of our day-to-day programs and services, three overarching initiatives that we are
yeah.
focused on. You're welcome to absolutely highlight those. I think they
Okay.
demonstrate to the reviewers kind of how the organization operates, what it might be using funds for, but you
Yeah,
just want to avoid making the central focus, so narrow that it
that
seems like, hey, this is a grant to fund AI
particular
implementation
project, right.
versus this is
Yeah,
Central Boston. Yeah.
that's great, Andrew. I mean, we're using it across the board to improve even the grant writing I do, right? We're using it to improve just about everything we do. But this one particular project really has revolutionized the way that we engage with older adults. So that's really the bigger picture that I'm trying to sell to you guys.
Yeah.
So if that makes sense, then that sounds really great.
Great.
Thanks for taking the question. Thanks for doing this seminar. I wish a lot of other places did this type of thing.
Thank
Absolutely.
I
you.
appreciate you all. Thanks, Andrew, Katie, and Joyce.
Our next question is from Dorothy. Dorothy, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi, I'm Dot, and I'm with the Ecotarium in Worcester, and we actually provide STEM education for underserved children. And I want to know about your hard, fast geographical stop. Is it impossible from anybody outside Greater Boston, and I know you've done the Discovery Museum in Greater Boston, for us to apply for an LOI?
So being in Worcester, unfortunately, yes, you would be
Okay,
outside our funding area.
understood.
Yes,
Thank
and
you.
we are sorry. Again,
It's
it's a
okay.
matter of just needing to draw the lines, but
Yeah,
we try to be as clear as we can because we know that it takes a lot of time and effort to write a
it does.
proposal. So we try to be upfront, and we do appreciate the work that you do.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Ginger. Ginger, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi there. Thank you, everyone, and thanks for always providing these webinars. They're very helpful. Just two quick questions. For the annual expenses, should we go 2026, 25, 24, or 25, 24, 23?
Yeah, so it can be a little tricky because people have different fiscal years. Some operate on a calendar year, some have a June one, some have a September 30 or October one. So I would say it's your most recently completed fiscal years. So if that's 26, 25, 24 based on your fiscal year calendar, fine, or 25, 24, 23. We just ask that they're completed fiscal years and not projected,
Oh, okay.
current end of year fiscal year.
And then second, any other tips you guys might have for the general operating? Not used to doing those. I'm used to focusing on like one program. So any other tips would be appreciated.
Yeah, I mean, I think that as Joyce did a reference, keeping it focused on your organization's mission really at large, not delving deep into specific programs or services, but using those more as illustrative examples of how you accomplish, however you define your mission really at large. I would say that one other tip is you think about your organization, all that it does, all of its programs, projects, or services thinking about what are your definitions of success, and then how are you tracking against whatever that definition of success is. Whether for even for general operating support proposals, we do see from our reviewers in the feedback that hey, this organization has been around, they seem solid, their needs description was excellent. I have a solid sense of who they are and what they do, but they miss taking that next step. I don't know what their impact is. I don't know how they're defining success and how they're effective. So I would say my advice is not only thinking about why we have need, what we do to address it, but then how we know we're successful at it.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next question is from Tatiana. Tatiana, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes, I will. Very nice meeting you all. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and it's a pleasure. My name is Tatiana Bigault. I'm the Executive Director of Mascosh. I have been working very diligently for the last 2 years and taking over the organization and the structure. We have been acquainted with the Cummings Foundation. However, it will be my first time going through this whole process as well. I am very much interested in knowing what is the new website that we currently have for the applications and the LOI. What will be the actual process that we need to do? We have been around for about 15 years doing health and safety. And it will be incredibly important for us to receive some extra support, especially on general operating budgets. But what it will look like, the application now. So should I submit the LOI via email or the application via the portal? What it will look like if I can get some more guidance in it.
Yep. So it sounds like you're asking about just what is the process to
Correct.
submit. Yep.
Yes,
And
yes.
so I encourage you to go to our website,
I
cummingsfoundation.org, and click on the local grants tab. There is a ton of information there. We lay out the timeline. There's a link in there to begin a letter of inquiry. So the only way LOIs are accepted is through our online portal. We don't take them via email or mail. So I would go to our website, click on that to begin. You can go ahead, don't feel like you need to have your LOI done before you click that button. I strongly encourage you do that sooner rather than later in case you have any technical hiccups as you are getting onto the platform where you have had, where you have applied with us before, you already have an account. So we ask organizations to please not create an account for your organization. Look for one first. And if you're sure that you have never opened one before, start a new account. Otherwise, we can help you log on and get connected so you can see all your past applications and the information is together. So all the information is there. There is a link on our website with a preview of the LOI so you can see all those questions in advance. It's in a Word doc, so you can download it, save it, and start working on that. Katie, it looks like she has one more question.
Yes, I do. Okay, I apologize. So I'm actually in the system and I do have the website, but I was under the impression that there will be a new login. I can see the applications even prior to my existence. That connection was already done since 2014, 17, 22, and 24. I wanted to make sure that I submitted, but on the time that I apply, it says, have you received it in the past? And it says that I do not qualify, which is odd considering the fact that it was mentioned previously that those that have been recipient in the past
Yeah.
could potentially
Okay.
qualify
So
for.
yeah, it seems like as you went through the eligibility
Yeah.
quiz, there was something. So the best thing to do, if you can send an email to
Okay.
grants@cummings.com with your name, organization information, we can go in there, take a look. We've heard from several folks lately who said,
Okay.
hey, I accidentally answered a question wrong. How do I get back in? So if that happens, email us and we can open it up for you.
Wonderful. I thought that I was doing something wrong and there was a different sort of platform to do this new LOI. So, but I am in the system. I have seen the
Okay.
timeline. And the website is pretty comprehensive, so I'm very appreciative. It's just that I wasn't clear of why I don't qualify.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, we can look at the eligibility
Okay.
quiz, and if there's any question, we can answer that for you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Marilyn. Marilyn, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi. My question, I'm Marilyn Kuhar. I'm Executive Director of at the Bunker Hill Community College Foundation. We're just looking for some clarification on your website says something, it emphasizes going for general operating support, but it also says if you are part of like a multi-faceted organization, like if you're a school or something, you could consider to do a project. So we are just on the fence as to how to approach it. And could you give me a little more explanation on what the exception to the general operating support is?
Sure. Yeah, I'm glad to have the opportunity to clarify. So the vast majority of the awards this year will be awarded as general operating support to an organization at large. For a small handful of organizations, we do have an exceptional category. So if you are a very large multi-department organization like a college or a community college, if you are fiscally sponsored, or if you're a religious organization, we will restrict the funds to a specific department, to a specific school or unit within your larger organization. In general, though, we will still make the funds highly flexible and essentially general operating support like. So, for example, if it's a community college and the community college has a department of workforce development or whatever it might be, it would be a grant restricted to the workforce development department, but that would be the most restriction we would put on it. It would be general support for workforce development programming, essentially. And then for religious institutions, we do want to make sure that the funds are going to services that are made broadly available. So if if it's a church that operates a daycare center or a food pantry, we'll restrict it there. But again, it will be very flexible, general support. So those are a few exceptions of those exceptional categories. In the LOI, we actually do provide some guidance there. So as you're moving through it, it will clarify what we mean by one of those exception categories.
Okay, great. Thank you, Andrew.
All right, our next question is from Diksha. Diksha, if you'd like to unmute.
Yeah, thank you. I have like two questions. If an organization's work spans immigrant support, workforce development, and digital access, so which category tend to give reviewers the clearest understanding of a mission, like which category I need to select? And there's one about geography for organizations that are statewide but headquartered in Middlesex, Suffolk. Is there anything we should know about how reviewers interpret geographic origins?
All right, so the first question in terms of the category that you choose,
Mhm.
a lot of organizations could fall under multiple categories. We get that. There's no right or wrong answer here. There is only one way that we use that field, and that is to batch LOIs before we give them to our volunteer reviewers. So we don't want to give them, a school, a clinic, a food bank and ask them to compare three completely different organizations. And so we try to give them a batch of education-based organizations, a batch of food pantries, so that they are comparing similar organizations. So that is the only way we use it. So it's really up to you what you feel, what category you feel best describes your organization. It may come down to flipping a coin at some point. I know organizations often want to know, okay, well, which category might be more or less competitive than the other one, which is a great question. But we just don't know because it changes every year. We don't know what everyone else is going to pick. So we get a lot of questions about this. Unfortunately, we can't really give you the answer. It's up to you, and just know that there's not a right or wrong answer here, just whatever you think is best. And as regards geography, if you can repeat that part, I wasn't quite clear on what you were asking.
Diksha, if you'd like to unmute again.
Yes, yes. If we are, we are an organization that is statewide, operates statewide, but headquartered in Middlesex, is there anything we should know about how the reviewers interpret geographic eligibility?
No. So if as long as you meet the criteria, then you will be considered alongside all the others. So there's nothing else to be concerned with there.
Mhm. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Danita Joe. If you'd like to unmute.
Great. Thank you so much. My name is Danita Jo Talbot, and I'm with Friends of Herder Park. And my question's really about that outdoor spaces. I haven't heard many people talk about organizations that are focused on outdoor spaces and creating equitable access to outdoor spaces. I'm hoping that you can provide me a little more clarity if we are a good fit, or should even be considering this. What does it really mean, equitable access in plain language, and or do you have any examples of successful applicants from other Friends of Parks organizations?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So again, as Joyce mentioned, those categories are very broad. We recognize that, and really we're using them to batch mission similar organizations together. So we do not have more defined strategies or rubrics or evaluation criteria underneath any of those. So really it's, hey, do we feel like based on what our mission is, we can say with some confidence that that is aligned with however you would interpret that description of the category. For environmental groups, we introduced that category of interest to the foundation a couple of cycles ago. And we did try to get a little more specific. I think there are 4 or 5, subcategories there, essentially to narrow environmental work that can truly happen locally, right? We know that some climate focused organizations, that is very much either a regional, national, or global issue. And it would be very difficult to define their environmental or climate work in a local context. So it really is what you see there on the screen. But I can say that a number of organizations that sound like they're similar friends of, parks or recreational areas across the state do apply, and we would deem that as an eligible applicant.
Yeah, if I just can clarify a little bit, I'm just, I think that when we start talking about what we do outwardly focused, a lot of people think about it as a space, and I'm worried about that idea of that outward as opposed to what our true mission is. You know, the outward perception of who we are and what we do, as opposed to what our true mission is. People will know us for our space and the programs that we put on, but we're so much more about creating a sense of community and making the park accessible and all that sort of stuff. So I would build the narrative around that, and I just wanted to make sure that that was more of a fit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that that could be a great distinction to draw. One thing that we offered in the very first session, Q&A session, and the recording is online, is some grant writing tips and tricks. And one of the things that we say is call the elephants out. If you think that there is something that applicants or I'm sorry, that the reviewers are going to be confused by or going to start asking questions around, just call it out. So you might say, hey, a common misconception about who we are is that we are this particular place or space or park, and that we offer programs. But in fact, it gets deeper than that. It's about community building and a sense of place. However you describe that, I think you're welcome to build that into your narrative.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Natasha. Natasha, if you would like to unmute.
Thank you very much. Natasha Sulkin, Executive Director, New American Association of Massachusetts. Just great session. Thank you very much for offering this Q&As. It really helps. My question, I have actually two questions. One, it's about the reviewing process. So since a lot of intent asks whether the organization has received Cummings funding before, do volunteer reviewers also receive information about the returning grantee and previous performance, how they do, or they review the new application without that history? That's
Yeah, I'll answer that one first. So previous grantees will all be batched together. So whether or not you've received a grant will not come into play. It doesn't take points away or add points for you. Our reviewers will have access if they want to prior applications, but my guess is that the vast majority do not look at them. We ask them to read a lot. They at the LOI stage, they have about 60 LOIs to review. So they generally have plenty on their plate. They often go to the website. They typically are not going to go back and look at a past LOI. The one thing they will look at, however, if your organization has had site visits, so a number of organizations that received grants in the past have had site visitors over the years. We ask them to write a report that is saved in our portal, and our reviewers can access those and can be very helpful in their decision making.
But if they didn't have a reviewer, I mean, does it make a difference?
Yes, yeah. If not all past grantees have had site visits, so that doesn't count against you if you did not. And again, they would likely just go on your current LOI and perhaps looking you up online.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you very much. And my second question is, I understand that we are applying about more as a general operating request, which makes sense, and I embrace the idea. Thank you very much for doing this way. But I wanted to ask whether we should be somewhat specific about the areas where funding is most kind of sensitive and needed without making the request appear to be program specific.
You can certainly mention that, and if you want to, comment that how general operating support is going to be particularly helpful because it will allow you to address some areas that are difficult to fund. So absolutely, you can mention those things. Like we've talked a little bit about, I would just caution you on making sure that you do also talk about the organization as a whole, the programming that you do, the impact that you've had, so that the reviewers really have a sense of the whole organization. And then it may be helpful for them to know that, oh, okay, interesting to know that this is a way that the grant might be impactful for them, but they'll also know that that's not something that we're going to hold you to, so they won't be making their decisions really based on that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Courtney. Courtney, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi, I'm Courtney Lucas. I am with St. Patrick's School in Lowell, and I've been on the receiving end of Cummings grant before for Lowell Catholic, which is a much bigger operation where I am now. On the note of being a Catholic school, where we are not your typical model of Catholic school, we're a much smaller elementary school. Is the fact that we're a Catholic school sort of limiting for this round? I know that we do a lot there. We serve, low-income students. About, I'd say 95% of our students are immigrant-based population. We've been doing it for 174 years. We have a really strong legacy and message there. But, is this going to come in and they're going to say, oh, Catholic school? No. Or is there a way to sort of navigate this that wouldn't be limiting?
Yeah, no need to be concerned if you're an independent or private school that has a Catholic affiliation. The one distinction that does matter, though, is whether or not you're a tuition charging institution. So when we made primary and secondary applicants eligible several grant cycles ago, we did start to receive a very large number of applications from independent and charter and other types of schools beyond public schools. What we very quickly found is that tuition charging schools, whether they offer very large amounts of financial aid, whether they have sliding scale, whatever it might be, the tuition schools just were not as competitive as tuition free and or public school or free programs, unfortunately. So to just spare the investment of time that applicants make, we did introduce the criteria that tuition charging institutions would not, unfortunately, be eligible. And something that I always like to acknowledge is that we fully get that, hey, tuition is what makes the mission of the school possible. It needs resources, and very often tuition driven institutions like private schools, independent schools can maybe innovate in ways that some of their peers maybe can't. So we do see all the benefits of tuition charging schools, but unfortunately, that is a criteria that we do have just to draw a line somewhere and to limit the investment that those institutions are making in putting materials together.
So Andrew, for something like that, we are in theory, a tuition-based school. However, 97% of our students aren't paying tuition. Our tuition we're keeping exceptionally low, so it's accessible for low-income families. But the funding that they're getting to cover that, like under $5,000 a year tuition, that's actually coming from a different organization. It's still the cost of educating a student is about $13,000 a year when there are only, maybe 2 or 3 students in the whole school that are actually paying that.
Yeah, I think it might make sense if you want to give us a call. We can chat through the the specifics of your school. What I can share generally, though, is when we're screening schools for eligibility, if we go to your website and we do see a published tuition schedule for the year, typically that's our cue that a tuition is assessed. But if there are unique circumstances around your school, do feel free to give us a call. Like Joyce mentioned, our contact details are on the website. We can talk through those individual cases and then, give you a determination.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Our next question is from Amanda. Amanda, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes. I was just curious. There's my camera. I just wanted to learn a little bit more about the grant for smaller organizations, and I'm wondering where I can read more about that. We're a very small nonprofit, so we may or may not want to go that route and focus on a specific department. But I'm curious your thoughts, or if there's pros or cons to going that route.
Sure. So I think you're referring to at the LOI stage, the LOI is the same for everyone. We do ask, are you requesting $25,000 or less for an annual installment or greater than that? If you ask for 25,000 or less, you will all be pulled out and batched together. I'm sure you're getting the sense we do a whole lot of batching over here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of focus on that. So we did, and that's we're trying to make it as equitable as possible. So typically it's newer or smaller organizations requesting 25,000 or less. So we try to put you together so that you are not competing against a 50-year-old $3 million organization. So that's something to be aware of. At the full application stage, we split them again. We have fewer questions, smaller fields for the smaller dollar requests to try to relieve some of the grant writing, excuse me, burden for them. On our website, you can, where it has the timeline and talks about the application, there is a preview of last year's application there. We have not gotten to the point of rewriting the application for this cycle yet. It will change because of the switch to general operating support. But if you want to take a look at that, it will give you some sense of the differences between the two. But those are really the two differences. The questions will change at the full application stage, and it's a matter of who are the other organizations you'll be batched with.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? I'm with Amanda.
Sure.
I was just wondering about measuring impact and what sorts of ways in which what sorts of ways are you guys looking for in order for us to communicate measured impact, especially if we have a hard time gathering like hard statistics on things? Would talking about like potential impact be helpful, or perceived impact? Can you shed a little light on how somebody could talk about it if they don't have a whole lot in regards to hard statistics?
Sure. So yeah, we don't have really a prescribed way to go about this, and we fund such a wide range of organizations, both in size and cause and programming, that we recognize it's really going to look different for different organizations. There certainly are applicants where they have a sophisticated system, they have all kinds of metrics they can share. We recognize that is not feasible for some organizations, and some programs lend themselves more to that than others. With some organizations, it's the matter of just an in-house survey that they do themselves, and whether it's they send an email out to participants or have handwritten forms, it doesn't have to be costly, or a lot of technology, but just something that gives them feedback. And I guess a question for you to think about is how do you know you are accomplishing what you want to accomplish? How do you know you're doing a good job at the end of the day, end of the program, end of the year? In terms of talking about potential results, that's a little tricky because I think the reviewers are going to say, okay, well, that's nice, but like, what is the reality of it? I actually had a feedback call earlier today, and that was part of the conversation that and multiple reviewers had said, hey, we're looking to know more about what is the impact that they're having.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great. Our next question is from Casey. Casey, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi everybody, I'm Casey Fry with Jewish Big Brother Big Sister. A few questions. First one, because funding ask is different this year, I'm curious if there's going to be an award range, especially for people who are in the bucket of we've been funded before.
So no change to the size of the grant. So a minimum of $10,000 to a maximum of $100,000 per year. So you're welcome to request any amount in that range. We did talk, I believe, earlier about the 20% guideline, so no more than 20% of average annual expenses. There are obviously some caveats to that if you're fast growing, et cetera. But in general, you're welcome to request anything within that range.
Awesome. And then are you looking to fund gaps in general operating funds or to fund or for funds that will help expand, improve, grow, services, programs?
Yeah, so I would say general operating support gives you the flexibility for any and all of those things. So depending on your organizational circumstances, you are welcome to describe in your narrative, for example, hey, general operating support is going to be especially meaningful to allow us to stay nimble as, governmental sources become more uncertain, for example. However, you could also talk about that, hey, general operating support will allow us to meet certain organizational priorities and expand our services and programs. I think that you could take either rationale in how flexible, unrestricted general operating support is going to add value to your organization. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. I think that you can tailor, the rationale and justification to your circumstances.
Thanks, Andrew.
Absolutely.
Our next question is from Raymond. Raymond, if you'd like to unmute.
Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon. My name is Raymond Manatsa, and I work with Livenia Furusa at Dwelling House of Hope. Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. And we're from Dwelling House of Hope in Lowell, and thank you very much for this helpful session. My question reads, you mentioned that the 20% guidance is not a hard limit, and that rapidly growing organization can provide context for a larger request. So, for a relatively small organization that has experienced significant growth in community demand and people serve, and the breadth of its services, what specific evidence would you encourage us to highlight in the LOI to demonstrate both our impact and our organization and financial capacity to responsibly manage and manage a substantially larger unrestricted grant?
Good question. So yeah, I think we'll be looking at that question that asks for expenses of the last 3 years. And if they have been jumping up, that will definitely be a sign. And then you can certainly add in the narrative that, hey, here's what we are experiencing in terms of, demand has increased by X percent, and we are gaining more and more support every year in the community. As you can see, here's what we project. And so that is why we are asking for this larger amount.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question is from Katie. Katie, if you'd like to unmute.
Thank you. As a volunteer working with a small nonprofit that is entirely volunteer driven, thank you very much for the acknowledgement that our smaller organizations kind of operate in a different sector than the larger ones, and keeping the smaller requests separate. Very much appreciated. Looking at historical trends, can you speak to the proportion of grants that are eventually awarded to those smaller organizations versus the larger ones in the end?
Yeah, it's hard because we don't know what the applicant pool is going to be like, and we don't
Mm-hmm.
know how many organizations are going to apply in that small grant category versus in the larger grant category. That has fluctuated cycle to cycle. So to give you some, meaningful proportion or numbers, it could be misleading, given that we just won't know
Okay.
until we have the full pool of applicants on September 16th.
Understood. Thank you. Can I then follow up with, I know that those smaller organizations are batched together.
Mhm.
Are they then further batched by sector, or is it just kind of a general pool of smaller organizations?
Yes, so this gets into the many different ways we filter applicants when they arrive. So all of it. So they are first separated by new and returning, as we mentioned, and then they are separated by large and small. So below 25,000 a year or less, and then greater than 25,000 a year. And then within those categories, they are batched together by mission focus based on the category that is
Okay.
selected.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Okay, our next question is from Emma with MassBike.
Hello. Thank you so much for hosting this. I kept changing my questions because people kept answering them. But forgive me if this was already defined, but how are we defining a small organization? Is there a specific definition of that, or is it just based off of the request for 25,000 or less?
So yeah, for our purposes, we have the short form application, the standard application at the full application stage, and for kind of our shorthand as we refer to it as small and large, but organizations of any size could ask for $25,000 in or less, and organizations of any size could ask for a larger amount, and it's really up to you to determine, hey, what installment makes sense for our organization, and just to bear in mind the factors that we mentioned, that typically it is smaller or newer organizations. And smaller, I mean, we have, organizations with budgets of, 50,000 a year, up to, 500,000 or 1 million a year who might go for the smaller one. And then we have others that want to shoot for the stars, and are okay being considered alongside larger organizations. But typically, it is those smaller organizations. Again, not a hard line, but 500,000 to 1 million, and often much less, choosing to do the short form proposal.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next question is from Rafaela, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for hosting this. This is Rafaela. I'm with the Boston Food Forest Coalition. And my question is related to one that has been asked. Some folks have been asking about focusing on specific projects when organizations might not fill the general eligibility. I have kind of the opposite problem, if you will. So most of our work fits within the eligibility criteria, and part of the work that we do fits in land preservation, which you don't support through this grant. Does this fit this situation where we should focus our application on a particular project, or mention that we would restrict funds to the work that we do that fits the eligibility criteria?
Yeah, great question. I know this is one that kind of straddles, like you said, eligibility parameters and categories and criteria. So a little bit of a gray space. But from what I know about Boston Food Forest Coalition, the primary goal is to preserve space and land to then, allow it to produce food and healthy foods that can be made available, as well as other, hunger relief efforts and sustainable agriculture efforts. So I think that if your organization primarily is about, sustainable agriculture, addressing hunger and healthy food production, and that the preservation of land is simply a means to achieve that larger goal, we would not render render you ineligible for that reason. And we do have a number of things that we've mentioned on the call that are not eligible activities, arts, athletics, animal welfare, and then the historical preservation of building and land. But I think because your organization, again, is multifaceted, we wouldn't rule you out just because it might touch on an otherwise ineligible category. And then similarly, we would still, I believe, feel comfortable providing a general operating support grant. We would not ask you to just narrow in on one thing and have us restrict the funds unless you fall into one of those clearly defined exceptional categories that we mentioned earlier. You would apply for a general operating grant.
All right. Oh, Rafaela, did you have a follow-up question?
I was just going to say thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Our next question is from Lily. Lily, if you'd like to unmute.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm Lily from William James College, and our intention is to apply for our Workforce Development Center rather than the college as a whole. So when we answer your questions about our budget, should we be answering them just from the perspective of the center or from the whole college?
I think for organizations like that, it could be helpful to give us both. We've received this question a few times, and I've typically answered that if you give, the center budget / organization budget, that then gives the whole picture.
Thank you. And one other follow-up question. When we're explaining the project, explaining the center in the LOI and the application, is it valuable to introduce the college as a whole or to really focus on the center and just passingly mention the college?
I would probably mention the college, dedicate a little bit of space to that to give it some broader context, but then spend most of the real estate on the center.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question is from Wayne. Wayne, if you'd like to unmute.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Wayne Grant. I am from the Meadowbrook HOA Mobile Home Park in Hudson, Mass. And I noticed you work with different organizations. I was just wondering if you work with HOAs.
So if the HOA is organized as a 501c3 public charity, and the organization exists to provide programs, services that benefit a population at large, regardless if they are an owner of an HOA, I could see it being eligible. But again, 501c3 public charity status would be clear or would be necessary, and also that it operates programs and services that align with one of the foundation's interest areas. So education, healthcare, human services, social justice, or the environment.
Unfortunately, we are not a 501c. I am with VFW and all that, so I know about that stuff. But we can work through a 501c. Would that be something that we could do?
So in that case, if you do have programs or projects, again, that align with the foundation's interest areas that would be, for the public benefit, and
the public benefit would be the personnel within the park. We're a 55 plus senior park. So what we're looking to do is for the members of this park, not outside of the park. And I'll tell you exactly what it is. We have an infrastructure problem. One of the things is we have mobile homes. A lot of the mobile homes still have the 6-gallon tank toilets.
Wayne, it sounds like this is a pretty specific example. And so the best thing I think is to give us a call afterward. Again, our phone numbers are on the website. If you want to call Andrew, I would be happy to chat with you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next question is from Jamila. Jamila, if you'd like to unmute.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Jamila Gales. I am from Girls Reflecting Our World, Incorporated, a girls mentorship program here in the city of Boston. And so my question is, we have just gotten our 501c3 status this year and have worked through fiscal sponsors for the past couple of years. So are able to document grants and things that have been received that way. Does that suffice for the LOI? And even if there were different fiscals, like what does that look like for us? And just want to make sure we're still eligible.
Yeah. If you have, congrats, first of all, on receiving your 501c3. That's exciting. But if you have been operating for a few years, that's great. All that work that you've done is very valid. So you can definitely use the operating expenses from the last few years on your LOI, even though it was through different fiscal sponsors. Thank you.
All right. Our next question is from Jay Cunningham. Jay, if you would like to unmute.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You can.
Okay. It's Jennifer. Actually, I also couldn't quite rename myself. Jennifer Cunningham, representing AgeSpan, which is the aging services agency that covers the Merrimack Valley and the North Shore. And my question is a little bit around the switch to unrestricted funding, which is wonderful. But I'm just wondering how your readers are contextualizing both at the LOI stage and at the full proposal stage. Is it really just those 3 years worth of agency expenses? Is that the only information besides what's in the narrative they're going to have? Is there any point at which there's any agency budget or 990s or anything else that's going to help contextualize that? The basis for my question is, we serve 80,000 older adults in our region. It looks like we have a very large operating budget, but most of that money is restricted use. And in the course of our daily work, we are constantly encountering older adults who have needs that fall outside of the programmatic confines of our agency. So obviously that's a question for the narrative, but I'm wondering if there's any other part of the dossier other than those expense lines that the reviewers are going to be able to access to help them contextualize.
Right. So at the LOI phase, it is limited to the information that's collected. And our motivation for doing that is simply to spare the added effort of filling out a full application only with like I said, we have about 959 that applied last year. 700 went on to the committee for review. 300 to 350 went on. We don't want to exercise organizations to fill out an extensive amount of information with a low likelihood of success. So we do start with the LOI phase where we collect limited information. For those organizations that move on to the full application, we do ask for much more, especially in the way of financials. So independent audits or an audited statement for smaller organizations is something that we request. We ask for a copy of your latest 990, and there are a few more financial narrative questions that we will ask. So yes, at the next step, the full application phase, to your first part of your question, much more comprehensive financials are requested. And yeah, I know that typically there you can show what is a relatively lean operating budget versus either pass-through funding or highly restricted funds. What I would say at the LOI phase, though, whether you decide to put something like that in the needs description or in the description of your organization's program and services, if you're trying to make a persuasive case why flexible, nimble, general operating support, would be meaningful for your organization, it might make sense to highlight that with a sentence or two. Yes, we look like a very large agency, but for everything that you described a second ago, this is why unrestricted support will either help us fill gaps, will reach needs that our current funding simply won't allow us to get to because it's restrictive in nature. Whatever that narrative might be, it could be compelling to incorporate even at the LOI phase, knowing that you do have limited real estate and there are trade-offs and how much you can include, et cetera.
Thank you. Looks like our last question with a hand raised is from Lisa. Lisa, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes, I'm sorry. I apologize for the delay. Couldn't find the unmute button there. So I am with the 15 White Coats. It's a national nonprofit. We have previously partnered with Cummins to support an internal program for breeding. I think it was working with the employees for volunteer hours and working with the local schools. We are based out of Louisiana, but we work with partners across the country. And as I said, we've worked with Cummins before. So we're coming from an existing understanding of relationship. As I think about our growth in Massachusetts, there's a specific community college that we would like to partner with, and I'm in communications with now. They have a high school through, obviously, their community college. The focus is workforce development, specifically for students interested in healthcare. And I was just wondering if this would be the type of project that Cummins would be interested in. The support that we provide is guidance longitudinally. We would never lose the students that from high school through their being able to get into their professional engagement. And I just wondered, whether it would be better to, or if that's something you all would be interested in, and would it be better to ask for restricted operating support or programmatic support, or both?
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing great work. Given that you are based in Louisiana and are a national organization, unfortunately, you would not be eligible for this program. You're certainly welcome to work with a local organization who can apply for funds. Given the change to general operating support, they couldn't necessarily apply for funds and say, hey, we would like to use these funds to work with the 15 White Coats organization, but they could apply for general operating support. And if they so choose, use some or all of those funds to engage your organization and partner with you.
Okay, and the last follow-up question, it would be better for them not to indicate that they will be working with us, or just mention the programming?
We have shifted to a general operating support model. So rather than having proposals focus on specific projects, they should really focus on the organization as a whole. If you're partnering with a large institution like a college, then they can bring it down to the center level, the school level, the more of a program level, but we would still view it as general operating support within that. So they certainly could talk about, hey, part of what we'd like to do is partnering with this organization, but we would want to know more about the overall work impact of the organization, and we would grant those funds as general operating support, and would not hold them to or ask them for reporting on their work with your organization.
Thank you so much, Joyce.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any other hands raised at the moment. Feel free if you think of one more question. We are also going to open the chat for anyone who prefers to type their question. Please note that the chat will be available only to Cummings staff. This is simply to spare you all in the event of any Zoom bombing activity, which we were the victims of once in the past. We learned from that experience and keep these calls as locked down as we can. That is also why you were not able to change your names. Because the chat can quickly become unwieldy with this many people, we ask that it be used only for questions, not for things like sending goodbye messages as you hop off the call. We recognize that people will be jumping off to carry on with their day, so please feel free to do so whenever you'd like. And please know that Andrew, Katie, and I are readily available if questions arise after this call. Although we don't schedule phone calls, we all answer our own phones, and we are typically very easy to reach. It seems to have become more and more rare these days, but the best way to contact us is to simply pick up the phone and call. Katie, do we have any questions in the chat?
We do not.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, thank you all for hanging in there with us for an hour and a half. We appreciate all the great questions. Again, we are readily available. We're really looking forward to see your LOIs as they come in. And oh, it looks like maybe we do have one question coming in the chat now. Oh, it disappeared. Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I saw one there, but now it disappeared. If you had a question, please reach out to us. But thank you so much for the work that you all do each day, and look forward to reading your LOIs.
We have one question, Joyce.
Oh, okay.
If an organization's LOI is passed on, would they receive feedback on how to strengthen their LOI the following year?
Great question. So yes, if you are declined and you don't advance past the LOI phase this cycle, you are welcome to give us a call. In the decline notice that you will receive, we'll put some information on the process for to requesting feedback. So yes, if it is passed on this year, we're happy to provide that feedback and always happy to make a plug. If you have applied in the past and you're planning on submitting again and you're interested in feedback on your last submission, give us a call here at our office. There's information on our website. We're happy to provide that.
All right.
All right. Wonderful. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your days.